Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Breaking the Blueprint, or as we're launching it, Making the Blueprint. I'm Paul, the guy who sits behind the scenes for Vinay and Iqbal on Breaking the Blueprint. And we've decided to launch a special bonus episode over the festive season this year because we want to show you a little bit behind the scenes where I would love you to understand a bit more of Vinay and Iqbal's journey, why they decided to create Breaking the Blueprint, because I think it's a story worth telling, and I love working with the guys on the show. So this is not about me; it's about you guys. Vinny, tell us a little bit about yourself for anybody who doesn't know you, and if you don't, like, what really? Why are you watching this? Seriously,
Yeah.
I think it's a great story for everybody to start off with.
People that don't know me, what are you talking about?
Exactly right. Who are these people?
So listen, I've spent, since I was 18, I'm 50 now. So since I was 18 years old, I spent my life working in customer service and contact centers and all things to do with customer facing stuff. So I got my first job as a call center agent in a bank. It was HFC Bank, who people might know from the GM card, Goldfish card, Marbles card was the first batch of these credit cards that came out. So I spent 4 years of my life there doing various roles. I then went on to work for egg.com for 10 years of my life. It's probably the greatest working experience I've had in my life. It was a greenfield, brand new bank, built from the ground up, no customers, but just launching something new at an exciting time. First, the start of the .com e-commerce world. And I'm a 22-year-old in this environment. Thinking, what the hell am I doing in here? Like, I'm not university educated. I've got very little experience. I've just got a bit of work experience under my belt, but it gave me the platform to do so much. I got to manage projects, lead teams, involved in early digital transformation, working with tech vendors, outsourcing, insourcing. I got involved in all sorts, and it was probably the primary education I've had in working in organizations, both as a functional leader and someone who's driving performance and doing all the things I've just said, but also development as a human being and being a leader and understanding organizational culture and the impact of it. It was just incredible. And then that was up until 2006. I'd done a couple of other roles in between with Teleperformance and Britannic Assurance. And then I started to freelance consult in 2006. Needed a bit of a fresh start. A couple of things had happened in our lives, my wife and my life. And then, started consulting, worked with different companies, a mix of associate work, direct work, works with lots of different companies, but all very much in that customer experience, leadership type work. And then in 2015, after partnering with Customer Whisperers, Nikki, who set the business up, and I met back in 2013, 14, I think it was, did a project with UK Power Networks, Boohoo, Red Row, and a couple of others that I cannot remember at this stage. And then we partnered on National Express, and I went in there with the intention of we were just doing a customer experience session for 2 hours at their company conference. And I really liked what we were talking about. We got invited back in to talk about a project. I ended up doing an interim gig there that was only supposed to be a few months, and it turned into an 8-year career where I ended up being chief customer officer by the end of it. And there I got involved in, again, organizational change, driving a more customer-centric culture. So bringing customer from the sidelines to the center of the organization, transforming customer contact and customer service, digital transformation. So I led the whole insourcing of digital product design and development. So we went all agile and we brought teams in. I started an innovation center. I was an MD for a couple of years. And then in 2003, I left after we had a big reorg, and it was time to go anyway. I'd been there 8 years, probably 7 years longer than I planned on being there. And 2023, looked at the market, thought, do I want another exec role, or I had a bit of unfinished business to do from the last stint of being self-employed. So I set up then Drew the Star, when you and I first worked together. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little while. And then April this year, I acquired a majority stake in Customer Whisperers and rebranded after Nick and I we'd always joked over the years about working together at some point. And the timing was right. Nikki's off doing something else. She's still involved in the business in the background, but I run the business day to day now. So Customer Whisperers is my consultancy business, and I do loads of public speaking as well. So people have probably seen me at events and conferences and stuff, speaking on the stage. My whole gambit is all about how do you get customers to come back, tell their friends, and spend again. And kind of predicated on the idea that the product to customer experience is memory, and it's memories that drive our future decisions. So I'm very much approaching this from a more psychological, neuroscience, neurobiology kind of leadership and culture perspective. And then during that journey, there was a guy who was running a company called Evolved CX who asked me to be on his podcast. And so I did. And so we met, and then I'll hand you over to Iqbal, who was that guy, to talk about his journey. And then we can tell you a little bit about how this all came about.
Thanks, Vinay, and nicely transitioned across. So my background, very similar to Vinay, actually. My very first job was working in a call center for an up-and-coming telecoms company based in London Docklands. And my job was to handle customer complaints. Imagine that, coming into your first job, and your first job is to handle complaints. And pretty much it shaped me in terms of how I then progressed on in my career later on. But being able to help people solve their problems is where it all began for me, in terms of my kind of working career standpoint. Outside of that, my love for technology has been there since I was a little kid, kind of, graduated with a computer science degree, and that kind of went on to lots of different types of technology jobs. My kind of passion, kind of what I realized when working within that call center and other jobs that I did, I became obsessed by experience. And I know our focus is about customer experience, but actually it's about everybody's experience. It's your experience as a user when using any technology to actually a customer then being exposed to the technology that you're exposing to your customers as an organization. That to me became a bit of an obsession around how can we use technology to really make lives better for people. Like, that's the ultimate goal. And regardless of what I've done throughout my career, that's always been a big focus. It just happens to be that I've leaned towards customer experience as a technology that's because I love the impact that actually has on the bottom line from an organization standpoint. But more importantly, I just feel like we're so behind as a civilization when it comes to handling basic things in life, when it comes to solving your customers' problems. So now, over the years, my most recent role at Zoom, where I was for about 4.5 to 5 years, I built out as a lead within the leadership team there. I built out a team of CX solution engineers, where actually our ethos and culture was all about let's put technology aside, let's really understand the problems we're trying to solve here, and genuinely try and figure out how the technology can help. And again, late last year, I decided to make a decision similar to what Vinay did. I've gone on alone. So that's kind of paved the way for Evolved CX. Ultimately, the goal for this is I'm building out a technology-focused consultancy to help organizations get big maximum value out of their investment in technology when it comes to making the right decisions, when it comes to figuring out what direction they want to go in. I think the market at the moment is full of choice. Like, there's so much choice. You can nobody really knows which direction to go in. You tend to go with what you know, generally speaking. But wouldn't it be great to just work with somebody who has experience across lots of different technologies, and somebody who takes the time to actually understand what you're trying to achieve first, rather than shove technology down your throat? And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of, certainly something that I'm seeing coming from, working in vendors, working with partners who are selling this technology. The focus is more around how do we hit our quarter number? How do we sell more licenses? That's the focus naturally, right? With any business, that's got to be the driver. We've got to flip it. This is what I'm trying to do. It's easier said than done. Actually, I don't want it to be about selling more software. Let's see if I can fix your problems. And if it means that, we as a business can make money by selling you technology that actually solves your problem, drives revenues, delivers great experiences to your users and customers, that's a huge win for us here at Evolved.
Awesome. So,
It's
so
a,
I, was
it's
just,
a,
I suppose that leads us kind of nicely onto, I suppose you're going to ask, how did the podcast come about, this idea come about, right? So in a similar way to Iqbal's drive being about solving problems through technology, and completely right about flipping that model on its head of solving problems rather than just banking revenue based upon seats, which of course businesses have got to make money, My thing has always been about enriching human experience. And the reason I say that is that, things happen in all of our lives, but I had a couple of things in life, such as maybe look in the mirror and go, life's a one-time opportunity, right? And the experience that we have and the way that we touch people's lives is what they remember us for. They don't remember us for the trinkets and things that we had and the bank account we had. That's what we remember. And the same, and a lot of our time we spend dealing with organizations and companies in our daily lives. And those moments are so poor and they have an impact on people's lives. And I just if you can improve those moments that people have with organizations, two things happens. One, you enrich the life of the individual. You give them a better quality of life because they have better experiences and live better. But the businesses do better because they're delivering greater experiences and people talk about them in a more positive way, and come back and refer them. And we've all had those moments around dining room tables, around pub tables, around snooker tables, any kind of table or anything when we gather together, that we share those experiences about movies, books, brands we shop with, places that we go. They're all that. And what I found over my career is that in many cases, that thing that we wrap up as customer experience, two things had happened. One, the term had got hijacked by tech vendors and some people that were just rebadging customer service and contact centers as customer experience. And secondly, it was being undervalued as a thing that you did on the side that was just about being nice and the fluff that you put on top. And it wasn't really seen as the valuable commercial lever that it is in a business. It's part of your growth strategy. You do all the hard work of attracting customers through the door in the first place. But then if you don't deliver an experience that brings them back, and, I was saying to somebody the other day, the worst kind of experience that you can deliver is one that you just describe as okay. I'd rather have one that was shit, that somebody writes to me and tells me was really poor, that I can learn from and fix, or a really great one. But all that effort to just get an okay, that's the worst crime. But yeah, companies are delivering between a 5 out of 10 and a 7.5 out of 10 experience every single day. And they're thinking it's okay, but all the effort to get the customer through the door. So that's the kind of the bit of the backdrop. And then, so where Iqbal and I connected on his podcast, we had a really great conversation. And off the back of it, I was like, this is really good. We should do this more, because we had a really good conversation. He brought a real good tech angle to it. And I brought what I bring to it. And then the idea of breaking the blueprint was born, because we wanted to break out the typical conversation of NPS, CSAT, do this, don't do that, the stuff that we were just seeing flying up and down LinkedIn, and have a much more broad and nuanced conversation to bring customer experience into the center, and this idea of customer loyalty to the center, this is much more about the entire end-to-end journey. This is about, front end, back end, the inside, the outside, technology, people, all of those kind of things. So we just wanted to bring an interesting set of conversations, and those people that aren't normally associated with CX and customer loyalty and those, to give them a window in and a way of connecting with the kind of things that we talk about, and hopefully raise the profile and raise the value of what customer experience really represents in organizations.
I love that. I love all that. And there are so many kind of connections between all of us, right? So Iqbal, you mentioned your journey starting in computer science. I'm a tech person. I started out in software engineering. I've never actually coded in anger, right? So I'm a failed software engineer, because the irony is when I left university, I decided that I didn't want to sit behind a desk the rest of my life. That sounds incredibly boring. I want to go and work with people and to be a people person. And I went out and worked in a call center. I did 11 months in a call center. I worked on Yorkshire Electric right in the middle of their super complaint.
Oh,
That was fun, I can
Painful.
tell you. Working on prepay meters that were going through a super complaint.
jeez.
And so, yeah, that was a baptism of fire. And I left that role because I met my wife there, right? Met my wife, and she's the reason I left that role, because we can't work together in that way. I was not at a level of ethics and morals that lived to her standards at that point. It was okay for us to be together, but not for the working part, right? So I left and I went into retail. And much the same as what you guys have said, is I found that I was leagues above everybody else in my capabilities because I dealt with all of these customer service. I'd been trained how to talk to people. I knew what good and bad was in terms of a customer experience. And although I'd only been there 11 months, you take a lot in, you have to absorb, you'd sink or swim in that environment. And then I find retail is very much a similar environment. It's very high stress, very much dealing with things that there's nobody else coming to your rescue, right? You have to be able to deal with it there and then.
Yeah.
But you're also in a leadership capacity then responsible for the customer experience within your environment, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So it's ironic that we've kind of all ended up on the same path together and then been joined together. And I love the fact that you guys got thrown together through a podcast. And I
Yeah.
see this so often. I love podcasts for their ability to connect personalities, paths, experiences, and bring those to the boil so you can kind of see what it is that everybody's made of, right? And I see this time and time again. People connect either because they're a guest on a host's podcast, and actually they realize afterwards, oh, we're really aligned, and I didn't realize how close we were until we just had that brilliant conversation. Or you're a member of the audience and you see the guests or the hosts talking about things, and it just sparks your curiosity or your imagination, or it speaks to the real challenges that you have. But what really aligned with me for you guys and the podcast that you have is I spent 4 years as sales/marketing. I was, a senior solutions consultant straight out of retail. I don't know how that works, but I was selling conversation analytics, right? That was my role. And it kind of brings together everything that you guys talk about. So the fact that we were all introduced, it wasn't luck. It was certainly engineered, but it was very serendipitous is what I'd say, is because we all get each other. And I
Yeah.
love the content that you guys create. I get it. And I love the angle that you bring to it, because I know, like, there's a lot of my audience. And when I say the word AHT, a lot of my audience will be like, what? But we've all done the customer service scores, right? We've all had the email. Hey, you've just had your MOT from us. How would you rate the service that you received? Well, my car was okay and it didn't need anything fixing. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great, I guess. Okay, 6.
Yeah.
What's, if you could see, and I'll throw this open to both of you, right? Like, if you could see an impact from the breaking the blueprint in a real life example, what sort of things would you hope to be achieving on behalf of your audience?
I think a couple of things for me, maybe as an unexpected answer, is for me, it's helped me build confidence actually in my ability to talk about subjects which are perhaps out of my comfort zone sometimes. Like, I get the technology stuff. You give me a problem, I'll find the technology to fix that problem. Like that stuff I can talk about all day long. But when it comes to kind of going outside the boundaries of seeing what impact technology really has on the stuff that Vinay talks about, for me personally, I've kind of learned a hell of a lot through stuff that Vinay's shared and the guests that have come on. So it's been a personal journey for me. If nothing else, that's been a great positive for me on that front. On another point, I'm always, I'm coming across people all the time and they're saying, yeah, saw your podcast, like everybody's been very supportive in what we're trying to do as well, in terms of being brave enough. And I think that's the one thing that I get. The feedback that I always get is, wow, what what you guys are doing is pretty amazing. And obviously to me, it doesn't feel that way. To me, it's like we're just having a conversation and we just happen to put it on online. If people want to listen to us, great. If not, no problem. But more importantly, as you said, we'd like people to get value from what we're trying to share. I think we're still trying to shape what this is. Like we're into the first year. It's a little bit imperfect at times. And I think that's where, I guess, Paul, your support's been very useful in being able to kind of guide us in the right direction as to what we can do really well, what we're not doing so well. Some of the technology mishaps we've had along the way. So I think we've learned a hell of a lot, like in all honesty. Vinay, I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, loads. I mean, technology mishaps. It's normally me that, puts my camera on. What was it that I did when I recorded
Time
the keynote?
lapse.
Time lapse. And then recorded the whole keynote in time lapse. And it's one of the best I've done. I'm like, damn, mic fails and all those kind of things. So yeah, learn absolute loads. I think for me, again, a couple of things. So, ever since I was a kid, I've been looked at as somebody that is just never short of ideas. Ideas come to me, like somebody once said to me, you have more ideas in a minute than people will have in their lifetime. Like you're full of just great ideas. But so many of those ideas get written down on a page, put in a book, and they sit on the shelf in a notebook and never come to life. So for me, the fact that we got this off paper and into something was huge. And I was listening to Brené Brown this morning on a drive down, and she was on a podcast with Steve Bartlett, and they were talking about vulnerability and courage. And vulnerability is the emotion that we feel when something's uncertain. We have anxiety, and it's we feel an emotion about it, right? It's the feeling we get from uncertainty, anxiety, and the unknown, right? And I think part of the process of this was getting comfortable with putting content out there that you then can't control. You can't control how people look at it. You can't control how people respond to it. You're putting your stuff out there. So when you hit the launch button and you send it out there, there is that level of, Jesus, what have I done? What have I said? What's going to happen? So I think for me, the development of being comfortable with that and using that courage or vulnerability as a strength has been really, really key. I think in terms of what I want the podcast, so what I would love the podcast to do is to move the conversation from CX that I see every year, every January when a report comes out. 65% of executives say CX is a priority. 72% of, and then the buying for it is never there. And CX departments live as a function in the corner of the room, far away. And I really want to bring more people to the conversation so that they embrace it and understand that it's a role that everybody fulfills in an organization. Everyone has an input, a role, can get into it, whether you're front office, back office. Like I said, it doesn't really matter. But it becomes part of the thing. Because for me, CX isn't a function, it's culture, it's your organizational culture. Like that's what it flows all the way through. So it's changing the conversation, bringing it more to the middle, helping people like me who were CX leaders or like us who were CX leaders in organizations with ideas and ways of framing stuff that help them to get stuff done is the key thing for me. Adding value and viewpoints, helping them to connect the dots between, yes, we've improved satisfaction, but actually it's got revenue impact. And how do I express that? And how do I talk about it? How do I get cybersecurity team involved and interested in why they should be thinking about CX and, physical space and all those things and elements of it. So bringing that variety of guests and different viewpoints together has been amazing for me. And then the third bit, just as Iqbal said, for me, it's the learning. Like, I once had a friend who was a coach say, when I'm coaching customers or coaching clients, I'm often coaching myself. And in this process, I'm interviewing guests and asking questions, and I have a view and whatever, but I'm learning so much all the time from other people. And it creates new ideas and content and stuff. So it's a great process, and I love it. It's one of my favorite days in the calendar is when we get into the studio, so hit record on those cameras, get the guests sat down, make a cup of tea, and just, have a great conversation. I love it.
And I think it's, you talk about the tech failures a bit, right? Like, oh, you guys keep me busy. You guys are always finding ways to give me a new challenge, and I love it. There's always a surprise. But I think it's been incredibly brave of you guys to to attempt to do as many episodes as you have in person, right? There's a lot of podcasters out there who will settle for the remote version of what they're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that remote version. But I do believe you get a higher quality of conversation, higher quality of output from doing it in person. But I also think there's a misconception out there that a lot of people think, well, if you go to a professional podcasting studio, there's no tech problems then. It'll be nice and easy and simple. And
I can tell you that is not the case.
Yeah, 100%. So the irony of all of this is I've helped you guys through doing your in-person podcast for the majority of these episodes, which I've never run an in-person podcast. So I'm kind of making things up as I go along, things that I know, things that I've learned. And then the irony is for one of my current clients is I've actually agreed to host. I was telling you guys before the episode, I've agreed to host on the client's behalf as a one-off. It's kind of a passion project as well as a client. And so I'm going in and setting up. I don't even have the luxury of a podcast studio, right? I'm having to set up kit and equipment myself for the recording. And everything that's going through my mind is, don't do that because that didn't work. Don't do that because that fell apart. Make sure you've got some redundancy. I'm going in with like 5 cameras.
Yeah.
I'm aligning 5 cameras, 3 different audio sources. I'm like, I've got one opportunity to record this and I'm going to make sure it happens. So I think it's a learning curve for all of us. And I've thoroughly enjoyed being a small part behind the scenes for you guys.
Yeah. What you said just reminded me. I was telling my nephew this story. My nephew's just like DJing. I used to DJ back in the day. And I was telling him about the fact that I used to carry a box of spares, fuses, like speaker parts. I remember at one gig we were playing and the speaker blew, and my mate is still playing, and I've got the speaker on its side, opened it up, got a soldering iron, and trying to fix his speaker in the moment at this party in the back end. And things like that happen, don't they? You just how you deal with it, right?
Yeah.
But it's even just down to little things like saying like you would in a normal conversation. Now I get to see the transcript on the back end when we're all edited, right? And the amount of I have to take out so that the words don't have the word in the middle. It's just those tiny little things sometimes as well. All those. So you'll see when I sit doing my podcast, I put myself on mute or I don't say I keep my mouth shut and I stay. And I've had to train myself to do that as much as I can because it makes my life easier on the end.
Yeah, that's a good tip actually, because it's very easy to kind of fall into that trap, especially when you're in person. I think because you kind of forget the cameras are on and where we're recording a conversation, where we're so into the conversation that when you kind of got to remind yourself not to do the ums. And I'm sure I'm one of the culprits, Paul, that you're having to constantly remove the ums from. But it's those kind of habits you want to ideally remove. Then you're not having to interrupt the audio for those that are listening. I think it's these kind of tips like this are so useful to kind of adopt and learn, and then ultimately we want to try and deliver a high quality podcast, and that's the reason why we've kind of done the in-person thing. And actually it's been in some ways because of the tech problems we've had with mics and phone stopped recording and things like that. We've had all sorts of things happen. Pretty much every episode I'm sure there's been something that's gone wrong, but that wasn't expected. Like when we went into this, we were thinking, yes, as you said, in person, we're in control of it. It's going to be more reliable. The audio is going to be better. But actually, you could argue that doing a video call like this, it's consistent, but you miss out on the kind of the engagement you have with the person that you're speaking with. I think that's the bit that you miss out on. So it's nice that we've been able to do it in person.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing that I've enjoyed is the guest preparation side. So, we don't script the podcast. It's never about, here are the questions we're going to ask you, give us these answers. We start with an idea and an angle and 2 questions, and then we roll from there. So it's all very, very natural conversation, which is what we wanted to. But actually, what the bit about the in-person that really works is because we've done that upfront preparation with our guest over email or a Zoom call or whatever, when we get into the room, there's chemistry already there. And then that just carries on through to the rest of the podcast. So you're not like warming the car up in the cold on the podcast. It's already warm and you're ready to flow. So yeah, I think that works really.
I think it's a nice balance for you guys. But I also wonder, like, how hard is it to manage customer workload, driving a pipeline as you run your own business, right? Like, you drive your own pipeline, your marketing, your sales, all the stuff that comes with all of that, personal life, and then managing to get there in person, along with managing 2 other diaries, because there's 3 people involved in this. It's not even just 2. There's a third complication there as well. It's been tough at moments, right?
Yeah, I think we've been quite fortunate actually, because I think obviously because we're kind of doing our own thing, there's flexibility there. When you're in full-time employment, it's difficult to make that time during the day. So I think that flexibility's helped. We've always tried to be as flexible as we can with our guests, as much as we can. Vinay's come down to London when I've not been able to go up, and vice versa. And I've coincided that podcast with a customer meeting. So we just kind of balance things off. And as Vinay said, for us, it's one day a month. We try and plan it a couple of weeks in advance. So generally, actually, so far, we've not had any cancellations or anything, have we, Vinay? I think we've been
No.
pretty
What it does do for me, I think I've shared this story. I might have even said it on the podcast. If I have, I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat it again. I'm sure I've sent it to you too. My daughter once looked at me and said, she went, "Dad, I figured it out." She said, "You're like a Chrome browser. You keep opening up all these tabs, and some of them are still circling and loading because of constantly everything." Because I kept saying to her, every time you interrupt me and ask me something, it's now another thing on my list. She goes, I keep opening new tabs. So I feel like I have this, when we first started, it was like another tab that was open that was called podcast. And so I'm continually thinking about, who do we get on to talk? What's the angle? What's the idea? And there's always a thing they're whirring around in the background. But I think the nature of running a business is just that. You are like a Chrome browser with a bunch of tabs open. Your HR director, finance director, your customer director, your sales director, you're all of those things. So I think it forms part of that. But doing our own thing has been helpful. I think our flexibility towards each other, and this is where partnership really comes in, that understanding of each other, that flexibility to travel up and down, work things out between us. We have quite a relaxed attitude towards that between the 2 of us. Even when it comes to paying invoices, we work that out between us, and we've not really had to tackle anything too sticky or kind of a bit of a problem. But yeah, I think from the offset, what was really important is we set out from the beginning, here's how we're going to approach it, here's the style that we want to have, and we just set, I guess, if we look back on it now, I don't think we knew this at the time, but if we look back on it now, what we probably set out was a set of design principles that we've just stuck to and said, this is how we'll approach it. And if I was going to do this again, and if anyone was looking about doing a podcast again, I would say to them, take the time to just get what's the objective of the podcast? What do you want your audience to get from it? What are your design principles and non-negotiables about what you want it to be like? And if you don't have that documented down, then you're going to be all over the place. I think getting that documented down at the beginning is really, really important. And we spent time backward and forth on a shared Google Doc, just kind of writing ideas, and we'd do this and we'd do that. And then we kind of went, no, we always wanted to make it in person for all the reasons we've described. We're quite happy to do it London or Birmingham. It doesn't always have to have a guest, but we'd love to have a guest most of the time. And I think we've just split the responsibility of finding guests and stuff. I think I'm now constantly just looking and listening out for interesting people and conversations.
Yeah.
I love them on my podcast. I'd love them to get on my podcast. I've got a list of people who I want to get on. Some of them are a dream shoot that I will never ever get. But I think a lot of them will be able to get on, and I really enjoy talking to them.
I think once you've been running a podcast for a while, that does naturally come. I think it's a big worry for a lot of people at the beginning. If you can have guests on the podcast, I remember worrying about it, and I remember having to do a lot of kind of cold outreach to people so mine's weekly, right? Like, so it's like imagine what you guys are doing times 4, and that's where I was at. And it was I wanted to be like 5-6 weeks ahead, so I needed to get half a dozen in the bank before I start to release. And I think at one point I was 7 months ahead on my release schedule. That's calmed down a bit now. I'm probably back to about 6 or 7 weeks again, thank goodness. But I think what was originally a lot of cold emails, cold LinkedIn messages to the right people has now turned into, oh, well, I know someone who'd be a great guest on the show, or you should meet this person over here, or my podcast is it's not well known. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to blow my own trumpet. Like it's pretty niche, but like the people who do enjoy it are big champions of it and will actively go and find me guests. So I find them dropping into me. And I think after a little while, you know, you guys are 10 episodes deep now, coming up this month gone.
Isn't it 11, Paul?
11.
If you know, you know. I think it's now kind of probably for you guys reached a bit of a perpetual motion, right? Like it'll kind of self-sustain with the guests a little bit, and you'll find people come to you as opposed to having to go and hunt everybody down. But your reputation starts to precede you a bit as well, and there's substance there. People can go away and go, oh, right, yeah, these guys have been going for a while now. Yeah, oh, actually, whereas before that, they might have been a bit, I don't know.
It's actually been also a really great, like, you know, I do a lot of speaking, and a lot of speakers talk about having a book as a big business card, and it's a way to get stuff in front of clients. This has been great. Like, if I share nothing else with a client or a prospective prospect, or even just somebody I meet at a networking event, I'm like, oh, by the way, I run a podcast. Oh, what do you run it on? Here it is. Take a look at it. And it's a great way of people getting a feel for me and for Iqbal, and what we talk about, and you know, a bit of exposure to the ideas that we have in a really non-intrusive way that they can just get that. And I think different to a book, like the limitations of a book is when you read text off a page, you read it in your own voice, or you imagine the author's voice. And, you know, words can mean different things and different pronunciations, the different way you pace it and stuff. But on a podcast, you've got the full thing. You've got the visual, auditory, and you've got the kinesthetic. You've got all three forms of emotional connection. And so you get much more of the essence of what people are talking about and the message, and you're not left down to interpreting what somebody may have written or not written.
Yeah, I think it's the rawness of it, right? As you just pointed out, what people get to see is unedited in most parts, but ultimately they're getting to see the real you. You know, in a book, it's edited, been reviewed. There's a ghostwriter most likely. They're not really getting to see what you're about. Yes, they get your view on whatever topic you're writing on, but in this kind of conversation, I think it's quite, for me, I feel quite exposed. Like, in all honesty, like that's how I feel. Like, I know, Vinay, you're more accustomed to speaking and you know, being able to kind of speak in front of a bigger audience. That's still quite alien to me. I don't do that as often. So, you know, stepping into this, honestly, it is out of my comfort zone. But I'm kind of pushing myself because I think you've got to, first of all, try different things, as you've said. It's one thing having great ideas, execution is another. And that's what I think we've been kind of trying to do. The other thing I want to mention actually is the guest thing. I find this really interesting because I feel like we've approached a lot of people and pretty much everybody's always said yes, because everybody loves to be on a podcast that I find. And the most interesting one for me was, I don't know if you know a guy called Mark Sumner, who's a technology recruitment guy. He's got a decent following on LinkedIn. Anyway, he met Stephen Bartlett at an event, and he just said to him, "Look, would you mind joining me for my podcast?" This was last year, by the way. So he was still pretty big back then. And he said yes. And he's now got a conversation that he's got content around, and he's spoken to Stephen Bartlett. So I think, going back to your point, Vinay, I think we can try and aim as high as we like, because actually most people are open to it, because it's kind of exposure for them as well, isn't it, in a sense?
I'd wholeheartedly agree. There are a couple of guests I've had on my show who I fanboyed over massively. Not as big as Stephen Bartlett, I must say. But one of which was Bob Berg, who Vinay will know definitely. You know, the instigator of the famous phrase, "all things being equal." And I have to get that bit in because that's the bit everybody misses. He gets really annoyed with that. Bob, if you're listening, I'll get it right. All things being equal, people will buy from other people that they know, like, and trust. And I lived by that for so many years. And somebody tagged Bob in my comments on LinkedIn, And I thought I was being really cheeky. I was like, Bob, would you like to be on my podcast? And when he responded, and he went, yeah, I'd love to. And he was a phenomenal guest. And I've done that a couple of times. I've had people who I never thought, Sarah Templeton, who's now my charity partner for my podcast, and we're working together, came because I was blown away by the book that I was listening to. And I had the audacity to send her an email and thank her for it and ask if she'd be on my podcast. And she said, yeah. And so they're just people like us. They're all publicity is good publicity. And I think that's fair game. But I think this leads into a really interesting point. So Vinny, we were discussing before, getting prepared for your podcast and what to have in mind before you get going. And a question I ask a lot of people is, what do you want to get out of your podcast? And for a lot of people, the stock answer tends to be, well, we're going to get a lot of views and we're going to get sponsored. Now, I know you guys started off with a sponsor as well, right? And I know it's great to have a sponsor. It's obviously any revenue that helps pay for the podcast is brilliant. Not to say that you shouldn't aim to get a sponsor at some point, but I always kind of push people away from that a little bit at the beginning because it's not realistic for most people. You probably, especially if it's a B2B podcast, you're not going to get thousands and thousands of downloads. You're probably going to get a couple of hundred eventually. But that's going to preclude a lot of sponsorship. So I always encourage people to have a good understanding of what it is that they want to get out of their podcast for their business and for themselves, as well as just, giving good content. And I'd like both of you to have a viewpoint on that, because I would like to know what is it that you guys feel like you've gotten out of running your own podcast from a business perspective and ROI personally. I don't know.
Yeah. So for me, it's dead simple. A mentor that I had early in my speaking career once said to me, Vinay, it's not about you, it's about them. And so I've had this mantra since my mid-20s of it's about them. Like, what's the value? What am I? It's not about the views I get. It's not about the applause I get. It's not about the feedback. It's not about me. It's how do I get these amazing ideas out of this person's head in a way that adds value to the people that are watching? Like the questions, the diet, the conversation, what would be an interesting thing? It's never about, this would be a really good clip if we could clip it and then we could put it on social media because I'll get loads of views. Like, that's not the point. So it's always about the audience. When I speak, it's the same thing. When I'm constructing a keynote, it's what do I want the audience to feel? Where do I want them to go next? What value do I want them to walk away from? So that's my overarching design principle. And the second thing is it's about progression, not perfection. So in everything we design, look, we've talked about the funny things about tech going wrong, but it's never about having the perfect conversation either. It is just about having a good natural conversation that people at the end of the conversation feel like it's been a 10-minute podcast, not a 45-minute one. They've come away with one or two great ideas and they can actually do something with it. That for me is the important thing. And as I said before, the kind of the benefit to me, or the business benefit is I just use it as a big business card. To me, being able to say I've got a podcast, take a look at what we do. You don't know me yet. It's about building trust. Before you jump onto Buzz answer, like in my work, I talk a lot about the trust equation from David Maister. Credibility, reliability, plus intimacy over self-orientation. And I think people focus really hard on credibility and reliability. Like, do I believe you can say what you can do? So here are my credentials. Here's the clients I've worked with. Here's the experience I've had. And then, demonstrating reliability because they can do the thing. The thing that they often miss out, and what organizations also don't spend enough energy on, is intimacy, which is, do you really understand me? How do you make the customer, the viewer, feel like I see you, I understand you, I know that you I might want to make you feel like you matter. And the self-orientation piece is it's never on our agenda. This is not about what we get out of it, and it's not just about purely what you get out of it. We're in that balance between this is a win-win. So that's the framing of the whole thing.
Yeah, to be honest, I couldn't put it any better. I think just on the sponsorship side, that's an interesting one. When we, as you've said, we kind of went into this, we had Novelvox who kind of supported us for the first few episodes. Clearly, we were still very new, so I was still trying to build a bit of an audience around that. And I think we kind of realized actually what we probably perhaps want to revisit this once we're a little bit better established. And I also think you can have sponsorship that aligns to the message too, right? So it's not necessarily about advertising for advertising's sake. If we started, being sponsored by Gillette, that's not really going to work for us, is it? I mean, we're not going to be promoted. That doesn't really time with our, you know, yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So, I think I'm not against sponsorship. I think sponsorship can really help take podcasts to that next level, because the funding can genuinely help maybe bringing in those guests that may cost money to bring on. So definitely something for the future that we'll continue to look at, but it shouldn't really shape the message or the vision as Vinay articulated there. I think that the fact that we're trying to deliver value through this continues to be the key driver for what we're trying to do.
The other parallel that I'll draw off just on what you said there, Iqbal, is that, when social media platforms first launched, when Facebook first came out, when Instagram, it was organic, it was authentic, and people loved using it. And the moment that those platforms tried to monetize it, it started to lose some of what it is. And I see some of these podcasts where, there's an advert every 15 minutes, like, the rest is politics. No, nothing wrong with it. Obviously it's a business, but you've got Fuse mentioned, Huel, On Clothing. You've got all these different things mentioned, and it just feels a bit forced and unnatural, almost like if you had the TV, and I don't know about you, on Spotify, I just hit the 15-second forward thing and never listen to the advert anyway, because it just.
Well, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, like, if you've got a sponsor, people have the option to forward this bit. Like, you almost pre-warn them on YouTube that this is actually an advert, and then they can just forward it through. So I totally get it, but I think genuinely though, if your sponsor can somehow be linked to the overall conversation, then it just feels more organic, more natural, rather than you're cutting to a point where you're trying to sell a Rubik's Cube or whatever. It just doesn't, that doesn't hit well with the audience. Like, there's got to be a link somewhere there.
Got to be a purpose. It's got a link.
Yeah, I think that's 100%. That's kind of why I went the route of getting a charity partner as opposed to a sponsor for my podcast, right? Is because it's something that I'm deeply aligned with. It's a great initiative. It's a nice thing to do, which is brilliant. I love doing nice things for a change now and again. But also because I'm ADHD and my charity partner is ADHD Liberty. My son's ADHD. A lot of my clients are neurodiverse in some way, shape or form. So it absolutely, and I think, so you've got to apply that to your sponsor, right? It's got to be the same, cut from the same cloth. But to be really controversial, and I say this to all of my clients and prospective clients and on all my network, I don't think the real value is in the episode itself. I don't think that's where the value is, because 95% of your audience are never going to listen to your episode unless you're Stephen Bartlett. I think the value is in the moments within that episode that people would never otherwise see. And that's why I don't advertise myself as being a podcast editor. I hate the phrase podcast editor. I do edit podcasts, but it's about repurposing the content. For me, it's about how can I take that 2 minutes that Vinay and Iqbal were discussing, this moment that's genius. And people will never see it if it's hidden in that episode. Or even if they do watch the episode, do you know what? They're probably answering emails at the same time and they've missed it. So for me, it's that I'm scrolling because I'm bored. I've just gotten home. I'm waiting for the kids to arrive home from school, and I'm going to have a flick through LinkedIn and, oh, what's this? And I've captured your attention for 90 seconds even. That for me is the real benefit to a lot of people. And being able to tag other businesses, organizations and guests in that to rent their audience and merge your audience with theirs temporarily. I think that's beautiful. And the amount of great conversations I've seen come out of that practice is just next level. I don't think there's much else out there that has the ability to bring people together like that.
Yeah. I think it's funny as you were saying that, because I was again listening to a podcast. Ironically, they were talking.
What
about,
now?
Yeah, no, not right now.
Jeez.
It's Gotham's trust trust revival method, and they talk about trust happens slowly in small moments. And I think what you described there is, exactly in the same way as if I delivered a 45-minute keynote, somebody might not remember all of it, but they'll remember a moment within it that really resonated with them. And it's the collection of those little moments that build the trust with your audience over time. So you're spot on. Like, that's the gift, that's the skill and the gift that you have of helping us find those small moments. Because we're just in the moment having the conversation, right? You're helping us chop it up and distribute those little moments, those micro moments, in a way that people can consume. And then they consume them and they do it again and again and again. And they build up a picture through these little moments rather than listening to one end-to-end episode. So yeah, that's a really nice way of putting it.
On the short form, I think you're completely spot on. I mean, in terms of those are the bits that people actually see when they talk to us about our podcast. It's because they've seen a snippet of a conversation, and then we've seen our guests replay those back or share those across to their network. Because the listening to an hour long or 40 to 60 minutes isn't going to be for everybody. We completely get that. It's really we're trying to figure out whether there's going to be those moments of spark where we know that that's the content that we want to get across. And Paul, of course, you're helping us uncover this, because once we've done one episode, we're moving on and planning on the next, while you're still working on getting the content done for the one. Because the one we did recently with Xander, I think there was some really good content there. I've not had a chance yet to look back at that, but you've already made the content. Those short form videos are there. We've just got to just make sure that we get those distributed. And I think that's probably the one thing that, for me personally, that I think we could probably improve on when it comes to looking ahead. We're starting to build a lot of content now. It's how we can repurpose that and reuse it, and then and make sure we take those golden nuggets and really use those to our collective advantage, I guess.
Yeah, it's moved from just content creation to distribution now.
Yeah.
Like that's our next journey. And it was Dr. John Gottman's trust that I was talking about, not Gotham, not as in Batman, Gottman. Don't confuse that with Gotham City. Right?
I'm going to love the transcription on this online. Fantastic.
John Gottman, Dr. John Gottman. But yeah, I think that's the next challenge, or the next evolution is distribution, getting it out to more people, different platforms. So currently it's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, those choose, but even platforms like TikTok and Instagram, and working out how this content works or doesn't work on those particular platforms. But certainly, short form has been the real game changer. I mean, we were just talking about the views the other day, and you look at the amount of views you have on short form content versus rest. And I think even LinkedIn tends to like videos that are 45 seconds or less. So real short, sharp bits of video seems to be the trend that gets people in. And then if they want the long stuff, they'll go find you.
I feel like there was a rant about explored there, Vinay, when we talk about algorithms and trends, and I'm not going to get into that. This is not the space for that. But I really rail against algorithms. I struggle with them.
You should go on this really great podcast called Breaking the Blueprint to talk about that, because they'd love you on there.
But I think that's relevant, right? Like, because there's a lot of, this is about customer experience, and your customer in this case is the audience, and it's about meeting them where they're at. So most people aren't ready to consume your podcast at the moment they find your podcast. What they need to be able to do is to be able to save it for later and find it easily when they're at a point where they're ready to listen or watch. And some people listen while they're in the gym. Some people like listening whilst they're driving on long distance road trips. Some people get the time to sit in front of their laptop on a train and they want to watch a podcast episode, so they'll watch it there. They might be scrolling before bedtime. Wherever they find you, it's got to be easy for them to find your podcast later, to be able to know where that's going to fit into their routine, and to be consistent with when it's there, so they know when it's going to be about. I know that on a Friday night I can listen to you in the gym on Saturday because it's the end of the month and you dropped your podcast on Friday morning. I know that, and then I can use that to my advantage. But
Correct.
people absorb content in lots of different ways, and the irony is I edit video for a living, but I don't consume video content very much at all, right? I have to suffer through my son's Minecraft YouTube videos. I'm trying not to have a breakdown while I process that. But my preferred medium is audiobooks or text. And actually, I even struggle with podcasts now because I find I get so many good ideas from podcasts that I almost avoid business podcasts because I'll come away with a row of shiny objects that I need to immediately implement. Then I can't possibly do. Stephen Bartlett's the worst culprit for this. All of his podcast episodes, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do all of this.
Don't talk to me about that. I wish somebody would create a way. Like I'll be listening to an audible in the car, and then I want to say to Siri, open notes, write this idea down. I wish there was a way, because you know when you have that idea in the moment, and if you don't write it down that second, you know that it's gone in its freshest form. So I'm like, just capture a voice note or do something. I don't want to let go of the steering wheel and hit a button and try and do something I'm not supposed to do. But if there was a way that I could just do that, because the same thing happens to me. I'll listen to an audio podcast and there'll be like a bonfire night fireworks display going off in my head because I go, that connects to that and that connects to that and this does that and that has a really good angle with that. And if I don't get it right there and then, it's gone. And then I'm on to the next one. Yeah. So yeah. So if anyone's listening who's got who can invent a product, I'd love to hear from you that can do that for me.
I think we can post that out, right, as a separate clip, and we can see what comes back. I'm sure there must be something out there. There's got to be. There's got to be.
Sure, TM the idea. We've patent pended it now just by talking about it in this podcast.
It's easy. We'll get the app built and have ChatGPT embedded underneath it, or it's possible. Honestly, I've got you, Vinay.
Yeah.
There's one more story I'd like to leave you all with, and it comes Stephen Bartlett. I feel like he sponsored this show, right?
Yeah.
But it's true. I listened to the Diary of a CEO book, and the one thing that really transformed transformed is the right word, underlined what I do and what we all do to an extent, as he talked about people believing in something that they didn't before. Now, what he discusses is, and I'm paraphrasing heavily, if you hold a gun to someone's head and ask them to believe in something fictional, they still can't believe in that thing because it's impossible, because they know it's not true. They can tell you they believe in it, but they won't actually believe in it. The gun doesn't make any difference, even no matter how much they want to believe in it. And the way the human brain's set up to work is that we need to believe in ourselves that somebody is an expert before we'll trust them. And we do that predominantly through aligning what they say with what we believe to be true. So, Vinay, if I'm listening to you and Iqbal and say 90% of the things that you say I agree with, I will start to see you guys as experts because I believe myself to be an expert. I mean, I don't, but you know what I'm saying. I start to believe you guys to be an expert because you align with what I believe. And I've evidenced this through my life and my experiences, and I've come to know that this is the truth. But then there's this 10% where we disagree. Now, from a behavioral science perspective, that does a really interesting thing because it causes cognitive dissonance. And it basically makes my brain hurt that you believe something different to me, yet I believe you're an expert, and the two can't be aligned. It can't be true. One has to be false. And if I then come to question my own beliefs and start to believe what you believe, because I go and look and realize that actually what I believed was wrong because these things here weren't true, and that's what I built my belief on, then I can now believe you're the expert and believe the same thing as you, and we completely align. And where that aligns to everybody who's listening to this is that's true of every business. If you want someone to come and buy from your services, your products, whatever you do, doesn't matter what you do, you need your customer to believe you guys are the experts. Forcing them to believe you're an expert doesn't work. Lowering your prices, for example, is not a way for them to believe you're an expert. What you've got to do is chip away at them over time, gradually build that trust so that when the moment arises, they know that you're the person that can solve, or the business that can solve their problem entirely.
Yeah.
And I think that links very nicely into why you guys started Breaking the Blueprint in the first place, because that's where we're at.
Yeah, completely agree. Really nice way to frame it. Love that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think that's definitely that's got to be the end goal here, for us to kind of work towards. And well, hopefully we're delivering that level of value to our audience, and hopefully in the future we're going to start to see this kind of grow into something bigger and better in the next year.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. You guys deliver incredible value, and it's been a genuine pleasure being a part of the journey that you're on so far. And I'm sure we'll have more conversations for the future as well, no doubt. Congratulations on passing episode 10, because 95% of all podcasts don't get there. So well done. It's a huge milestone. Technically, this is episode 11, bonus episode. Guys, have you got anything else to leave people with before we drop off for the seasonal holidays?
Just one thing from me. You've talked really kindly about working with us, but we really love working with you. And I mean this genuinely, Paul. This is not because, this is Ray McDare's fault for introducing me and you in the first place. And I have genuinely, I'm a tinkerer. I like technology and stuff as well. So I downloaded software and tried to do this myself. And I probably could, if I had the time, do some of this myself, not to the same level as you. But absolutely not. Like giving it to an expert, you're giving your baby and your idea to somebody else to help you with. But when that person gets you and gets you where you're going and understands what you're trying to do and makes a process so easy that it just takes a headache away, that it's just like, oh, just deal with it. Like, that's magical. I mean, people don't know the quarter to midnight conversations we're having on WhatsApp where you've gone, the audio's not working right. I've just synchronized this. I've changed this. I've done this. And then the next morning we'll have an email with, these are all the videos. I mean, that's just way beyond anything we'd expect. And you've not paid me to say any of that. This is genuinely, I really love that. Our WhatsApp group about this podcast is so funny, just because if anyone looked at the timestamps, it would crack them up.
Yeah, I think just to reiterate that point, I think for us, having Paul kind of supporting us, for me, it's like there's no big or small problem. It's like, we have an issue, Paul's got a solution to it, and he'll just go and deal with it. And he'll tell us exactly what he'll do. So I think, for me, it's not having to think about it. And sometimes I know that probably comes across as well, Paul, because just got so much going on with everything else in life that, and I think you appreciate that, Paul, and we appreciate you for giving us that time to solve all the issues that we've had around, editing or technical problems or whatever. You've always found a solution. By hook or crook, there's always a solution at the end of it. So that's been, I think, for me, I'll obviously, I didn't realize that would be one of the benefits of actually bringing somebody in, because like Vinay, we thought, well, we can edit video. What's the big deal with that? But I think it's more than just editing video. There's so much more to it. And if you don't follow through on it, it's just pointless content. You're creating content that can't be distributed properly. People aren't going to see. And having your expertise around everything around delivering this podcast has been really valuable. You can pay me later, Paul.
With what? But I think that's the fun for me, right? Like, the challenges that would have you guys crying is the bits that I really enjoy. Just like you guys do that for your clients in turn, right? And I think we've all got our zone of genius that we enjoy working in and being part of. And for me, like, there's nothing beats seeing the smile on your faces when I send that video over, and I get the message in the WhatsApp group, oh, Paul, that highlight reel was on fire, brilliant, I love it. Like, that for me is everything. Like, the money is like, it's a nice to have, but that's not why I do what I do.
Yeah.
I really want to help people share their journeys and their stories in a way that's accessible to everyone else. There's so much wasted content out there. There's so many good, valuable nuggets of knowledge that people have that will never see the light of day. So I love working with you guys. Thank you very much for your time today. Really enjoyed the conversation. And I won't see you in the new year because this is my only episode for the time being. But Vinay and Iqbal will see you in the new year. Have a fantastic holiday wherever you are, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you. Take care.